I'd like to now turn the webinar over to Mike Mahana. I'll make Mike a presenter here. And again, as an introduction, Mike leads the NetSuite practice here. He's used NetSuite as a customer of NetSuite. He's used it as a consultant and as a leader of a consulting company. Mike also runs our NetSuite user community. So he's very familiar with a lot of different types of businesses and how they grow with NetSuite. So Mike, we see your screen. Welcome to the webinar. We're excited to see a live look at the NetSuite software.
Great. Thanks, Steve. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. What you're seeing here is an environment where I'm logged in as Cameron Murdoch, the CFO of the organization. And within NetSuite, when you first log in, it presents you with a dashboard that provides just a wealth of knowledge and tells you what things you need to take action on. And so let's take a look at some of the fields and some of the portlets that you have. So first, navigating within NetSuite, every little box you see here is its own unique portlet, and these can be customized to a specific role and then down to the individual. So if you have a bunch of AR clerks or sales managers or payables individuals, you can customize it to each of them or their specific role. And so this one we're looking at as a CFO role. The navigation within here, I can, if I want this navigation portlet up here, I can just simply move it around and it'll pull it right up to there. And so if I like that up there, I can do that again. I can completely customize that. For me, I like the KPIs up at the top because it tells me how things look, how the business is running as I look at the system itself. Looking at some of these portlets, we've got a reminders portlet. And this is, if you're one of those people that like to write down everything you need to get done today, this is your NetSuite to-do list. And so we see here, I've got some reminders, expense reports to approve, and then bills to approve. The great about this is I can have as many reminders in here as I need to help run my business, but only the reminders that are applicable. So if there were no expense reports to approve, I wouldn't see that reminder here. So it is truly here's a to-do list of things that you want to look at. The other portlet I talked about briefly was just the KPI. And so this tells me everything about the business that I'm focusing on. I can modify this. So if I want to come up here and set up what KPIs I want. So here are the ones that are in there right now. I can add more standard KPIs. And these are all KPIs that come with NetSuite. It doesn't require customization from either a consultant or from an IT resource. But on top of all of those, you can add custom KPIs. So any views that you create within NetSuite can be presented within NetSuite. I can move them around, whatever order I wanted to look at them. And then I can also define the period. So if I want to compare, sales this month versus last month, I can see that information listed here, and it presents both of those. You'll notice as I navigate through those, it does kind of give me the link to drill down into it. So every one of these numbers here, I can drill down into it and see actually what's making up that number. I think one of the great things about NetSuite is just how interconnected all the data is. I mean, we talked about the 360 view of the customer. Well, I can start at the customer, I can see all of their open receivables, and then I can go down to the actual invoice and I can see how much revenue, I can see the GL impact of that. And so all of that is connected just by clicking through the system. Looking at this KPI, there's a couple different things that you'll see here. We're comparing this month versus last month on the sales. Most of these, here's a fiscal quarter versus fiscal quarter from a revenue perspective. NetSuite has a great capability that all these portlets can be customized, but then I can come up here, and let's see right now I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different KPIs listed here. I can come in here and say, you know what, I really want to look at all of these quarter over quarter. So I can come up to the portlet's date settings, and I can say, you know what, everything on here, show me this quarter versus last quarter. Click done. And what NetSuite does for you then is it takes all of your KPIs and changes the time period, and everything here is now this quarter versus last quarter. So I've just taken 8 reports and I made 16 reports just by simply clicking this option up here. So again, it allows me to look at that information. Any one of these other portlets, so this graph over here for quarterly revenue, weekly cash projections, any one of these reporting matrix here will show the quarterly aspects of it. When I'm ready, all I can do is say, go back to the Portlet date settings, and I've gone back to my normal view of how the business looks when I set up each one of these KPIs, as well as the other portlets. So this graph portlet went back to its normal setting, so did this income by period. So it's again not looking at a period by period, or I'm sorry, a quarter by quarter basis, which I specified previously. So we've got different portlets set up here, and then we've also have a navigation portlet. So this is customized to the CFO role, and the types of navigation or things that I would want to normally look at, I can set up and view here. So there's a income statement. I can simply click on that and it will take me to the income statement within NetSuite. If I wanted to look at the chart of accounts or view the subsidiaries or make a journal entry, I can jump right to those. And those are available as, again, as a navigation right from the dashboard you see here. One of the other things that you have available is your favorites. So you'll notice up here, the little star, these are all fields or pages within NetSuite that I have set up as my favorite. So you'll see the income statement. If I wanted to click on that, that's something I look at a regular basis, which I would as a CFO. It takes me right to the income statement, and from there I can look at it and massage any way I want to, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But as far as navigation, you'll see here this favorites are still there, and I can jump to the AR aging summary. And so it allows me to go in and look at all the different reports that I would normally without having to go to reports financial or reports customer AR aging. So you really simplify the navigation within NetSuite. You'll notice here I do have 2 tabs. Because NetSuite is a browser-based application, I can have as many tabs open. So if you're somebody that likes to have multiple monitors open at the same time, I could have my AR aging on one monitor and then the dashboard or some of my other reports on another one. And so it's great for doing research within NetSuite. Okay. A couple other things within NetSuite, the menus that you see up here, basically anything from this bar up is going to be the same no matter where you navigate to. So if I went back to my income statement, you'll see that as I navigate there, the menus are exactly the same. And so everything from here above is exactly the same. A couple of different things that you'll also notice. We've got a search bar, and this allows me to search any of the transactions that I have access to within NetSuite. So it's more or less the Google of NetSuite. One of the other things that is really helpful is if I go and let's say I take a look at this invoice that we have here, and as I'm navigating around and I'm just new to the system, either you just implemented it or I just started and you guys have been on it for years, NetSuite has within its help menu field level help. And so I can come down here and you'll see as I hover over that, it tells me, well, what is this? I can click on it and it tells me the help menu for that specific field, which is a great way to get familiar with the system. NetSuite also has a help menu up here. And so if I click on this, it takes me to the help menu, but it is field or I should say screen specific. So we were on this invoice when I clicked on the help, and it automatically took me to the creating an invoice screen. So you can see this is all the information. How do I want to create an invoice? And I could read down through this. What's great about this help also is it has related topics. So sometimes what you're looking for isn't quite there, and so you want to look at it another help file, you can jump right into that from here. And so this is all within NetSuite. These are standard help files. You can also customize them for your business as necessary. Let's go back to the home dashboard. Okay, so we're back here on the home dashboard. I showed you the search menu, and I showed you the favorites, and then also the home. One of the other things you have here is your recent records. So you'll notice that when I covered on that, I was able to look at, and I've navigated to each of these different transactions. So invoice 213 for Smith Supply as a customer of ours, I recently viewed, and so I can easily go back to that. If I was calling them about something and I left a voicemail and they called me back, I can easily jump back into that record without having to go search for it. Very powerful tool, depending on a day-to-day basis what activities you're performing. All right, so a couple other things. We talked about the portlets here and the dashboard. So this is your home dashboard. Now, every one of these menu options up here has its own dashboard. So we talked about more of a 360 view of a customer. And so let's take a look at our customers dashboard. So if I click on customers here, it may look very similar in the sense of the portlets, but this is, as you see here, a customer's dashboard. So I'm looking at a dashboard about all of our customers that I have access to. If I was in a different subsidiary and you limited it to that access, you could only see that subsidiary's information. In this case, I can see the entire company. What's great about this is it should have start to have a similar look and feel to it. The KPIs, again, I can customize those, but we can see how many new customers we had this month versus last month. And so I can drill down into that and I can see the actual list of customers. So again, great way to start high, kind of what do I want to know, and then start drilling down into the data that supports that. Every one of these dashboards can be customized, just like I did before I moved things around. You can do that. And then the reporting, so the graphs that you have here, if I wanted to personalize this, I can come in here, and in here are all the standard content. So if I wanted to add a different snapshot, a search form, if I wanted to see a calendar within there. So these are all the custom, I'm gonna say custom. These are the ways you can customize a dashboard to fit your needs. And so this is a great way to see information and jump to it rather quickly. All right, so looking at the company as a whole through a dashboard, looking at customers, all the customers as a dashboard. We also have the option for a customer dashboard. And so let's go take a look at that company, Smith Supplies. So I'm going to go ahead and click on them. I can also come up here and type in Smith Supplies, and I can jump to them that way also. So that's a great way to do it. So we're looking at the setup record for Smith Supplies, and you'll notice there's a little icon up here. I can click on that and it takes me to the dashboard. So again, great insight into this individual customer. So now I'm just looking at KPIs for Smith. So how do we do sales this year versus last year? NetSuite has both invoices, orders, and opportunities. And so we can track all of those within NetSuite. We can see how their balance was, if it's going up or down compared to today versus same day last month. And you'll notice we do have our Portlet date setting. So if I'm looking at things that say, you know what, today versus same day last month, I can do this quarter versus last quarter if I want to take a bigger view, or just simply stay with what I have here. Within the screen, we do have, or within the dashboard, we do have various portlets. So, KPIs were one, but then here are more various reports that you would typically run for a customer. So instead of having to run a sales order by customer detail and specify in the customer, because I am jumping from the customer dashboard, it will automatically limit the details of that report just for that specific customer. I can automatically go to a quote. If I want to create a quote for this customer or enter a sales order, I can do all of those. So again, a great place to start if you're doing any activity specific to a customer. I talked about some of the other portlets. This is a transaction view, and so it shows me all of the activities for a specific customer, in this case, Smith Supplies, what type of transaction it is, as well as the date. And then, in this one, we're looking at an invoice, and I can see that this invoice was paid in full. This one one's still open, or these three are still open. As you navigate through here, if you wanted to sort any one of these fields, you can do that. So I can just simply click on the status, and it would allow us to sort all the transactions by that status. I can also limit some of the results that I see here by specifying the criteria up here. Okay. All right. So we've taken a look at dashboards and really, how you can view them for the company as a whole, customers as a whole, and I also have, a vendor's dashboard that I can jump to, and then how I can look at individual customer dashboards. So a wealth of knowledge, and again, this is available right day one. As soon as you start using NetSuite, obviously you would have to populate data, or activity would have to build, but day one, this is there. I don't have to create this for you as a consultant, and no one on your team has to. This is all available to you. Let's take a look at some other reports. We'll start more or less, I like to say, with the end in mind, and look at the income statement. So I'm going to go up here to my favorites and then click on income statement. So this income statement is basically specified. It's looking at this fiscal year. So it has all of our activity from January to December. If you have multiple subsidiaries, you can either look at the parent or children or individual child, if you will. And again, that all depends on how you have that set up. If that's not applicable, then you're just going to be looking at your individual company's financials. What's great about NetSuite is if I wanted to look at this report, this is now running it for the entire organization from this period here. I can also do this by department. And so if I click on department over here in the column and hit refresh, I can now see my activity by department. So the sales department, if there's activity that I did not attribute to a specific department, it would show up in this no department here. And I can look at an income statement here. I can start to collapse sections. So if I didn't really want to look at that, if I really wanted to focus on expenses, I can look at this information here. And this is a great way, again, to drill down into, hey, here's, what happened to freight out, this month or this quarter, or for this specific department. I can do that. In the column area, I can also do it by accounting period. So I'm still using the same window, the same report, but these parameters down here make it very flexible to look at data in a variety of ways. And so now what I've done is I've basically taken the same report and said, show me January through October, which is what we have data for. And it's breaking that out, and I can again collapse this information. And I can, again, kind of look at things to say, okay, well, how, this seems to be going okay, and then we had a big jump. So I can drill down into that details for that specific period. And this is a great scenario where I may have multiple windows. Maybe I'm using this one on one, and then I can kind of do some of the research in there. And so, I think as you see, there's a variety of reporting information that allows you to track the transactions as they happen. And I think NetSuite does a good job of removing some of that transactional activity that you see with other systems, and allows you to manage the business more effectively rather than focusing on, okay, how do I get this sales order and how do I get this invoice in? And so there's a big emphasis on managing the business. And as you have the different roles, they can see it from a variety of sides. So again, there's flexibility in looking at this. If there was a question that I had and I wanted to send this report to someone, I have the ability to export this to Excel. So if you see down on the bottom right here, I can export it to Excel, and I can manipulate the data. I can also send it to PDF if I want. I can print it. One of the other nice things here is I can email it. So if I click email here, it opens up a little window and it says, well, who do you want to send this to? And so I can type people's names within the organization, or I can come over here and send it to maybe a board member that was asking about a specific information. And so this is a great way to share information both within the organization or outside. So this is basically, all right, who's it going to? Here's the message. I could say, look at expenses for June 2019. And what format do I want to use when I send this? Do I want to send it as a PDF? Do I want to send it as HTML? What's great about this is if I send it as HTML, it will have hyperlinks to the actual report. So if I was sending it to Steve, who had access to NetSuite, when I sent it to him, he could click on those numbers in there and it will take him to the same report. If I sent him a list of invoices that were past due, he could look at those invoices and drill down into them. So it's a great way to share information without just sending an email saying, hey, can you look at the income statement for January to October of 2019? I can send him the exact details and exactly what I was looking at. Okay. If I want, I can also choose when I email this, I can attach files to the email, and then I just simply click send. When that gets sent, it will be sent to, if I sent it to Steve, it would appear to come from my email address here at Terillium, but it would be sent from NetSuite. It doesn't actually go through your Outlook. It just gets sent from NetSuite. And it's a great way, again, to interact with internal stakeholders or external. Another option that you have here is if you find that, you know what, I generate this report every Monday and I look through the numbers here, you have the option to schedule this. And so if I click on schedule, I can say, you know what, I want to run this report. It's called the income statement. I run it more than once. I want to run it every Monday, and I want to start today, basically. And I can say, well, I just want to run it for the next quarter, or I want to run it through the end of the year. And then I can define who's going to receive this, as well as the message. So similar functionality we just saw, but again, I can schedule it, or what frequency I want to schedule this. Okay. So this is a nice feature if you have, again, I mentioned, a board or stakeholders or people that don't have access to NetSuite. I can send them information out from NetSuite without having to generate it every time and send it to them. So it's a nice feature to communicate with other individuals. All right, so let's take a look. We looked at the income statement. If I want, I can come back over here to financial, and then I showed you the income statement. You can also do a comparative income statement. So these are all the different financial reports that are available within NetSuite. You'll see on each one of them, I can choose to customize the summary or the detail. And so right now, if I look at, let's take a look at this here. I've got revenue of 462,000. So let's click at what exactly made that up. So I'm drilling down into the details, and we have a invoice and then a journal entry made up that amount. So and what you'll see here is I do get the ability to drill down into that even further. So it's a great way to kind of dig down into what activity is generating that financial impact. Okay. And so again, we're looking at the individual detail of the income statement for the revenue account. If I want, I just simply click back to summary, and it takes me back to this income statement, and then I can navigate around as necessary. So we looked at the income statement. If I go back to financial, reports, financial, and then balance sheet. Okay, so here we've got, again, we're looking at the balance sheet with totals. And so if I want, I can also come in here and say, well, I want to look at it by, and these are dimensions within NetSuite. So this allows me to flatten my chart of account and still provide the granular detail, or allow me to kind of slice and dice the data depending on how I want to look at it. So I chose department earlier. I might want to look at it by a dimension we're calling in this situation game. So if I click refresh here, I can see my my balance sheet by these classes that I've created, or we call dimensions. And so these are different ways to look at your business. So if you've got, operating divisions, if you also have, major segments that you want to analyze in your financials, you have the ability to do that. So there are class, location, and then division are three that come standard with NetSuite, and then you can add custom ones after that, and they all work the same. Anytime something posts to the ledger, you have the ability to categorize those segments so that you do get this level of reporting. So we've looked at these reports and how we can customize them with the dimensions, with the fields that are down here. I also have the ability to customize it even further. And so, these areas, I can come in here and say, you know what, I want to create a filter that I only want to see where the dimension is equal to, US operations. I can create that report and I can call this, balance sheet US operations, and everything else still behaves the same, except it only shows me US operations. And so it's a great way to customize reports that fit your business needs. And this may be one of those that you schedule and you send out to a specific, individuals that are impacted by US operations. What's nice about this is, it may look initially like, hey, there's a lot of pieces here that may take to get set up. It really doesn't. Terillium or any, the partners can set you up with that. But I think quickly you'll learn how to do it, and I think it's a great way to provide information. All right. Let's take a look at a few other things. So you can see here, I clicked on the home page and it took me back here. I'm gonna take a look at a invoice, a specific transaction. We'll show you a couple different things about that also. Steve, how are we doing on time? Are we still good?
Yeah, looking good, Mike.
Okay, great. So let's take a look. I mentioned that we wanted to look at this customer invoice, and so come back over here, and here's this invoice that I wanted to look at. I can also come up here and search for it. So I'm going to go back over here. So let's say that this is an invoice that I had called the client about and said, hey, this is due on 6/30/19. You're way past due. Can we arrange a payment? The client says, yeah, I'll promise to pay, by the the end of the month. So I can do a couple different things. So this invoice here, You'll see down below there's a variety of fields here, but one of them is on the communication tab. And in there, I can come to this specific invoice and I can create a new note. And I can say payment, and this is something that, you know, we had a either conference call or a call, and we could say that Steve promised to pay by the end of the month. Okay. So when I do that, you'll notice now that this note is down here. So if anyone else in the organization came to look at this invoice, they could come down to the user notes and see any notes that I was keeping track of, either as a sales rep, if I was talking to them today and they promised to pay that, or as a CFO, or if I was involved in the accounts receivable department, they can see all that information. Anyone can come in here and add notes, and then it'll just keep track of all that information. I also have messages that if I want to, I can reach out to this client and send them a copy of that. They said, hey, I don't have a copy of it. Can you send that to me? So I can come to this invoice here and I can go down to email. And by default, it shows me the email address for that client. I can add it to individuals. So if I'm in the collections department and I want to also include the sales rep, I can look for them in here, or I can type individuals at their company that I want to send it to also. So again, I can do that. Go to the message here, and thanks for conversation. Here's the copy of the invoice. And then again, I can decide on the attachment. Do I want to include the transaction either as a PDF or HTML? More than likely in this situation, it'd be a PDF. And then I click merge and send. And so what that will do is it will track that conversation or that email was sent here. So I can see that that happened, what date it occurred, as well as the message. And so anybody can track that. And if they responded to my, hey, thanks, we'll pay back on that date, it will track that conversation back and forth down here. So I would see two entries, one for my email going out and one for their email coming back in. And so this goes back to that, your customers as a whole, you can start to see activity. You can also go back to the customer page and go on the dashboard and see notes or emails that were sent to the specific customer. So there's a variety of ways to look at your business, both transactionally, you know, on these actual invoices, as well as any user notes or activities. Okay. One of the other things that's nice is if this invoice was paid in full, and this kind of goes back to what was mentioned before, that how the system is interconnected. If this was paid in full, if I scroll down here on these related records, if there was a payment, there would be a link to that payment. I can go in and click on that link and it would take me to the actual payment details. It could tell me it was paid on, you know, October 29th at 4:45 with a check number 441. So again, if you're and you would set up roles that would have access to see that information. So again, great way to kind of link around to the information. If I went back to this customer, so you'll see I'm going to go to the customer record here, and again, I'm just simply clicking on that, and I go to their dashboard here. So you'll see, again, all the information here. And if I go to the AR aging details, so we're starting, if I'm jumping too fast here, I apologize. We're on the customer dashboard, and I'm going to go to the AR aging. Okay. And invoice 213 for this amount is sitting right there. So again, I can drill down into that and I can see that information. So kind of a variety of ways to do things, which is great because, as people come from different systems, they're kind of used to navigating a certain way. And so I think NetSuite lends itself to easier user adoption because there are a variety of ways. It all depends on what makes sense to you as an individual. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover with you today. Hopefully you got some insight into how NetSuite operates and how you can get a fuller view of NetSuite across your a fuller view of your customers across NetSuite. So, Steve?
Yeah, that's great, Mike. Thank you very much. Nice job with the demonstration. I think that did a really good job of showing a lot of the power of the NetSuite product, especially as Mike focused in on a lot of the analytics and business intelligence that come standard out of the box with NetSuite. It's really a big benefit. So I want to remind everyone that if you do have any questions about what Mike showed you or about what I presented at the beginning, please submit those in your questions pane. It looks like we do have a few questions, so we'll answer those now. As I start to read these questions off, and Mike and I will answer those as best as we can, I would like to just also mention that as a next step, if this seemed interesting to you, Terillium does offer a business value assessment where we look at where you are and where your company is going, create a personalized solution roadmap aligned to your future plans as a business, create a business value presentation and present that to stakeholders at your company if you choose to do that, as well as personalize a NetSuite solution for you and put together time, cost, scope estimates to implement and purchase that solution. So that's certainly a service that Terillium would like to provide to you. If you would like to take advantage of that, you can always reach out to either myself or Mike. Our contact information is on the screen. So again, if you have questions, submit those. Here are a few. We'll read these off. First one, what is the database for the NetSuite product? NetSuite runs on an Oracle database, which is good since Oracle bought NetSuite just over a couple of years ago, so that works out well. It is the Oracle database. NetSuite runs completely in the cloud. You log into NetSuite, perform your tasks, and you're done. So you don't have to worry much about the database, but it is Oracle kind of under the covers. Does NetSuite have manufacturing modules like bill of material, inventory, and work in process is the next question. It does, and manufacturing is one of NetSuite's core industries, so it works very well for manufacturing companies. And not only does it have the kind of the basic manufacturing requirements, it also has an advanced manufacturing module, still part of the core product, but some customers choose to purchase the advanced manufacturing functionality, which also gives you the ability to do things like finite production scheduling, co-products and byproducts, things that you expect in the more kind of advanced manufacturing ERP systems. NetSuite can do all of that functionality for a manufacturing company and has a lot of manufacturing companies that run on it. Are customizations allowed for missing functionality in NetSuite? Yeah, so not a ton missing, but some customers do choose to customize functions, screens, tables, reports. NetSuite comes with a full suite of tools that allow you to build those customizations, everything from adding a field to adding a screen to writing custom scripts to perform functions. It's got a great workflow engine so that a lot of the custom functions that we might have as requirements, we can accomplish those with a workflow that's a little bit less technical intensive. But NetSuite has all of those tools, including tools for interfacing to other systems, everything you would expect in a full set of tools in an ERP system. NetSuite has that. Okay, looks like we have one more question, unless anybody wants to submit one while I talk here. How long does it take to install NetSuite? That's a great question. Terillium focuses on a few different ERP systems. We've been implementing ERP for over 25 years, so we have some good experience with what the different ERP systems take to implement. I used to think of ERP implementations in terms of 6 to 9 to 12 months. With NetSuite now, that happens a lot faster. NetSuite is more straightforward to deploy. We have seen some of our clients go live in as little as 60 days on NetSuite Financials. On more of a robust footprint for a distribution or a manufacturing company to include orders and inventory and all of those types of ERP functions, we see more of a 3 to 4 month range, but certainly faster than traditional ERP systems. So it looks like that was the last question. So thank you everyone for your questions and for your participation and time in today's event. I hope that this was valuable for you. We thank you very much for attending.